Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Stefano. For those of you who already participated in our previous webinar, maybe you already know me. If you don't, I'm going to be your host for today. So before getting started, I would like to just wait a few more seconds to make sure that everybody can join in with me. And I would also like to ask you, if possible, to make use of the chat functionality on YouTube to let me know if you can see the streaming correctly and if you can hear me just fine. So when I know that you can see and hear me correctly, we can just move on and get started with the webinar. Don't be afraid to use the chat and just let me know if you can hear me. Let's see. I think I'm getting the first feedbacks. 100%. Okay, that's nice. All good. Thanks, Stefano. Thank you for joining us today. I see a few users asking for subtitles, but in Spanish. Automatically generated subtitles, I think they're going to be available for the video once the video is over and you go and check it and you check it out again once it's over from our YouTube profile. I think it has subtitles there. But for today's webinar, it's going to be just English. I'm sorry. Let's see. Miami hears you. Whoa, all the way from Miami. Good day from Melbourne. All good here. Okay, that's nice. Buenas tardes. A ti también. In Munich. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. So just a few more seconds and I think we can get the webinar started. So a lot of people from Spain or countries where Spanish is the main language asking for subtitles today. I don't know why, but it's great to hear anyway. Oh, by the way, as I'm talking, you'll notice that I'm probably going to be looking up. That's just because my main screen is a little higher than the webcam, so I'm not looking at the sky as I'm trying to explain. Okay, I think we're good to go. Wonderful. Okay, so today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on how to customize a website X5 template. We're going to be talking about what we mean by template. We're going to be looking at certain specific sections of the software dedicated to customizing a few aspects. And I'm going to explain to you how they all come together, where to find some specific settings for, let's say, the header and the footer, for the content. This is what we're going to be taking a look at today. To get this actually started, I'm just going to disappear for a moment and I'm going to be showing you the software instead. Okay, here we go. I think you should see the software's main screen right now. So let's begin. Let's start with making a new template, a new project. So what happens when you start working with Website X5 and you want to get a new website started? So you actually have a few options to choose from. You can see right here, I've booted up the software and I went to the new tab right here, where you get the three main ways that you can get your new project started. Let's start with empty template. What's an empty template? It's a very, very basic model, or again, template as the software calls it, which means that all of the data is going to be structured and positioned in the default way that the software handles this. This is the main choice you're going to be making if you plan on starting literally everything from scratch. I also think this is most likely one of the options you will be choosing if you've had the chance of working with the software before. But if you're just starting right now, I don't think you want to start with an empty template. It's probably better to start with either an AI made template or one of the default templates, because they're going to be giving you a good idea of how content is handled inside the software. Um, so you can apply it to another later project you might want to start. Um, if you start with a template that is already made, a lot of these content is much easier to understand where it's positioned, how it's positioned. That way, if you start from scratch, you have nothing to go on. So you already have to know where to find certain elements, how to position some stuff. It might be a little harder to get into, but still, that's a choice you can make if you want to start with an empty template right off the bat. Then we go with Magic Site, which is one of the newest features of the software, was introduced not many versions of the software ago. This essentially leverages the power of AI to create a completely unique template for your website. So let's say if you start from an empty template, you have to build a website and in its entirety on your own. If you start with a template which is made internally by the Website X5 team, you're gonna find yourself with a template that other users may have chosen as well. But you're sure that it is like since it's made internally, it comes with a particular attention to design elements, fonts. It was made by experts in web designing, so you know that you are getting your website built from a good starting point. But if you want something completely unique, you can also use the Magic Site option. If you just click on Start Chat, you are going to be presented with an AI that's going to ask you like a few questions about the kind of website you want to build. So maybe what's it going to be about, if you want it to have an e-commerce, a blog functionality, if you want it to be focused on written content, um, written content, or images like gallery, photo gallery, stuff like that. And then it's going to take a few minutes to generate the template for you, and then you can just start working from what the AI generated for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the templates made internally. So you just go to, I want to start with a template, search for a template, and you're going to be presented with this screen right here. So let's start talking about what you are seeing here. So when you purchase website X5, you are already presented with over 100 templates that are built internally by the website X5 team that you can choose as a starting point for all of your projects. You can see that they are divided into categories like design, business, stores, and so on and so on. Right here, we have all the categories, so we can browse all of them if we want to. But you are not limited to only the templates that come included with the software. You see that some of these templates also got a little crown icon over here. As it says right here, it's a premium template which can be purchased for credits, which are an internal currency used in Website X5 that is used to either purchase templates which are not included with the software, or to acquire further functionalities which inside the software are called optional objects, which essentially allow you to add some more effects or little functionalities to the website once you start building it inside the template. Once you acquire them, you can find them under licensed, and they're not gonna be presenting this crown anymore. But today, since we are going to be working on a template that you all should have access to and that you can also follow along if you got the software with you right now, we're going to be choosing the one called Smooth, which is this one. So when you, let's say you decide you want to go with this template, before actually getting started with the work, you can also click on the preview button right here, which opens up a preview, which I got on my second screen. I'm going to pull it up here. You get this preview of the template. which allows you to check it out before starting to work on it. So you can see whether or not it actually matches the idea you had for your website. You can check all the pages, just like that. Before deciding, oh, I'm sorry, before deciding if you actually want to go with this template or not. Once we decide that this is the template we're going to be working with, you just click on the edit button right here. And the software will automatically download the project, decompress all of the files, and open up the main part of the software for you to start working with. Since before starting the webinar, I mentioned that I was going to be defining template for you, template website. In Website X5, I say we get that part out of the way right now. So a website, of course, is the final thing that you find once you go online. You can see your website, you can see the content you put into it, you can visit other people's website. So a website is made up essentially of all the files that the software is generating and that are finally uploaded onto your hosting space once you finish working with it and you move on to step number 5 to upload the website on the internet. When we're talking about template, we're talking about the website while it is still inside the software, which is the part where you are allowed to modify any content, image, text that you can find on the website. So a template is essentially a big group of all the content that you put inside, structured in several pages, in a header, footer. It's all the content that you took and decided to put inside your website to be modified, positioned. So it's not yet a finished website, but it's still like only the visualized version of it that you can modify, that you can still change. A template, when you select it from the start screen, what is very important to understand here is that even when you are selecting a template from the initial choices you're given, templates are nothing but other projects made just internally, which are then provided to the user to start their work. So everything you see inside a template that you pick when you start working on your new website is 100% something that you can recreate on your own, starting from a blank, from an empty template. When you download a template made with Website X5 internally, essentially what happens is one of our colleagues made that website using the software itself and then provided the template. So everything you see in any template, keep in mind it can be changed. It's not like you start with a template which was pre-made and then you see that it has like some images or some colors or some texts and you're like, well, I don't really like the images, so I'm not going to be picking this template. That's not the case. All images that you find inside the templates are just there to allow you to better understand what you are getting if you decide you want to start with that template. But you can change any image, any text that you find in there at any time. This is very important because in a lot of situations, there are a lot of users that start with a template and they think that they're forced to use what they are given, but that's just not the case. So we opened up our new template called Smooth. And the first thing I think we should be going over is to see what step number 1 offers. So for today's webinar, we're going to be focusing mainly on general information. So I think we can start from there. This is usually the first part of the software you're going to be visiting when you start a new template, because it contains some of the more fundamental information about the project itself. First of all, the website title, which is a piece of information which is both displayed to you as you're working inside the software. So if you have more than one project, giving it a proper name, of course, helps you understand what project you're going to be opening. But this also goes onto the website online. So it's important that the website title matches with the content you're bringing to your users. And then you have the website description. The website description is usually something that is not really intended. This is pretty hard to explain, but you're not going to be writing a description, let's say, in a normal way, but you want to write this keeping in mind what SEO is in web designing. So, what is SEO? SEO is essentially a list of I want to say rules, but they're not really rules. As in, if you don't do that, your website just doesn't work. It's like best practices, you know. So there's a compilation of rules that that allow you to know what to put inside your website to make sure that the website is as easily findable online as possible. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where, let's say, for example, I'm not very used to working with SEO and I have to write the website description, this is what this button is here for. It's called MagicText. You can just click on that whenever you have an active license with the software, and you're going to be prompted with a different AI that is going to be asking you to talk a little bit about your website and what you want to put into it. And it's going to be generating the website description automatically to just put inside this box on its own. So you don't have to like think about the description and the SEO part yourself, because Website X5 can take care of this for you. Of course, if you want to modify any aspects of it once it's being generated, you're absolutely free to do so. Just keep in mind that if you're not used to working with concepts such as this, it's usually much easier to just let the AI do it for you. Then you have the website icon, which you can provide. It's a little image that appears on the top left screen of the browser once you visit any kind of website. You have your author, your category, and then the next important thing we're going to be taking a look at here is the content language. You see that right now it's set as English, but you can just click here and change it to anything else. So it's important to understand what we mean by content language. So changing this option, let's say, to Italian, is not going to be changing the language of the interface you are working with. This is used for two main things. First of all, is telling the software what language your website is going to be written in. So all those, let's say, automatic texts that are positioned by the software automatically inside the website are again automatically translated into the language you select here. Let's take, for example, if you want to build an e-commerce. If you build an e-commerce, of course, you're going to have a series of elements like checkout button, for example, or yeah, buttons and text and stuff like that that you do not write yourself, although you can change them if you want to. But if you just change the content language right here, all of those texts are going to be translated automatically into the language you want to use. And also, the second thing, which is very important, is that once you publish your website online, there are, let's call them like hidden codes. It's like code inside the website that you don't really see for yourself, but the computer knows that these codes are there, which tell the internet what language your website is in. So if, let's say, for example, I'm from Italy and I want to build a website for Italian people, the fact that I put content language into Italian is something that the browser, that the internet is going to be keeping under consideration when it's deciding whether, for example, Google wants to suggest my website to a certain user or not. For example, if I am making a search for something in Italian and there's a website which has that kind of information but is completely, let's say, in German, it's highly unlikely that Google is going to be showing me that website first. It's very much more likely that it's going to be showing me website which have their content language set in Italian, because it's just more likely that that's is the content that I'm going to be interested in, and not content written in a completely different language. So this is also very important to keep in mind. Going back to website setting in step number 1, you can see here, this is where you can enable the e-commerce functionality for your website. You can enable the blog. You can change access management, which is essentially if you want to have users be able to log in onto your website or not. Mm, but all of these topics are actually something that we, let's say, we made specific videos for each one of these, which go into more detail about how the e-commerce section works, how the blog works. So I advise you go check those out after the webinar ends. Again, you can find these in our Incomedia account on YouTube, because those go much more deep in detail about how this works. So if you, for example, are interested in learning more about the shopping cart, I believe that video is going to be helping you a lot more than this one right here, which is more focused on a generic look at where to find the elements and options to customize the different part of the website. So with that out of the way, I think we can move to step number 2, which is probably the richest one in topics to talk about for today's webinar. We're going to be focusing on template structure, template content, text field and button styles, and sticky bar. So let's start with the template structure option, which says define the structure and graphics of the model. So when you click there, this is what you get. And I'm going to be explaining to you what this is in just a second. Let's go back to the preview of the website for a moment. So let's start by talking about how a website is divided as you are looking to it. So this is the top of the page. We can immediately recognize 2 different main sections of the website. The first one is the header, which is the top part of the website, which usually features stuff like the menu. In this case, it has some social buttons too, but it can actually have any kind of content. You can have images, you can have videos, you can have almost anything. Just keep in mind that the header is one of the 2 main parts of the website that is usually always the same on every page of the website. You can see that if I move to contact, this part stays the same. Same if I go to portfolio and back to the home page. So this one up here is the header. Then you can see as we scroll down from the top, we have this new kind of header that appears, which is called the sticky bar, which follows us as we are scrolling down the website. We're going to be taking a look at this later. Then, of course, you have the main content of the website, which is essentially the central part, which is all the one right here. It has some images, again, some links, some text. And this is usually the main part of every page, which changes as you go through different pages. Like portfolio, you see we have different pieces of information, same as contact, and then back to the home page. So header, the main content, the sticky bar, and then finally you have the footer, which just like for the header, the footer is another part of your website which usually doesn't change as you are navigating through different pages. You can see that it's always the same. The header is usually meant to give your users an easy way to access the different sections of the website. So it's good to always give them the chance of having the header at hand so that they can change page at any moment. And the footer, sometimes it also has menus in it, but most often it is used to present data such as contact, like an address, phone numbers, emails, sometimes logos, sometimes privacy policies and stuff like that. But yeah, just like for the header, in your footer, you can essentially put everything you want. This kind of header right here gives a good idea of what a footer is usually used for. So now that we know this, we can go back to the software and we can see that this kind of grid right here essentially divides the entire page in the same way that we just saw as we were looking at the preview. So you have your header, you have sidebars, you have your main content section in the center, and you have your footer at the bottom. You can see these sections on the side right here. These are usually left free because these are used as kind of safe zone for your content to make sure that no matter what device you are viewing your website from, you always have some space on the side and content doesn't stick to the border of your device, sometimes risking go even beyond the edge of the screen you're looking at. Just in general, kind of ruining the experience for the user that is checking out your website. So if you notice that as I click on these sections, like the header here, the page section selected changes. So this is the header, this is the footer, then you have the footer background that you can customize. For example, here you have a solid color placed. Same goes here. For the content, you can decide the minimum height it can has. You can decide margin for the content. You can put a color for the background here as well. You can just leave it blank. You can add, if you don't want a color, you can add an image too, if you want to have an image as background. And then you also have this section on the left, which is used to handle the responsive view of your website. So let's talk a little bit about what responsive is. So responsive is this kind of technology that most websites are built upon, which is, again, essentially a set of rules that your website follows that specify exactly what size each element should be, or the general structure of the template should be, according to the size of the device that the website is being viewed upon. So of course, you know that if you are watching your website from a PC, of course you have a lot more space to place your content. But if you're watching the website from a mobile phone, especially in portrait mode, which is the vertical mode, of course you do not have the same kind of space you have on a computer. Also, the computer is usually extends horizontally, while the phone, of course, you can rotate it, but most often you're going to be using your phone vertically. So sometimes it is necessary to manage the content so that you are sure that all of it is correctly visible from all devices and all sizes. By default, the software takes care of this on its own. So you can see that as I navigate through the different sizes, these are handled automatically. But let's say you want to change something because you have a specific need. That is something you can do at any time. Let's say for the smaller viewport, which is like probably from mobile, let's say you want to have a bigger header. You just go here, you click on header, and you change the height. You see that the space is now bigger. And once you go and customize the header, you're going to be presented with more space to put your elements. Keep in mind that you can also do the same with the header background to make sure that the background matches the height of the header, like this. So if you go into your preview, and this is the desktop preview, and then you click on the buttons right here, which allow you to check what your website looks like from different viewports, you can see that in the smaller one, now it's much taller than it is here. You see it has this kind of white space in the middle up until the bigger viewports. But if you go to the smaller one, it's just one unique block of color, because we decided to make this taller only from mobile. So we can go and turn it back just like it was before. And if we go to the smaller one, you can see that we now have the space above. So the template structure section is the section you're going to be using to determine the generic structure for all of the pages of your website. This part is very important. If you change the template structure here, this structure is going to be applied to all pages of your website. This is not the place to make a change if you're planning on only changing the look of a single page. If you change the structure here, it changes for the entire project. So be sure to handle the structure early on when you're working on the project, because if you want to change this later, maybe you have a lot of pages in your website, of course you're going to have to probably manage to move a few objects around in case they don't fit the new structure that you made in this section. So we can go back now to step number 2 and move on to template content, which says customize the header and footer of the graphic template. So what does this mean? So before, when we were in the section called template structure, we define things like backgrounds, sizes, stuff like that. But inside the template content section instead, what we are going to be doing here, you can see that we have a few objects, which are a title object, a social icons object, and a menu, which is kind of hard to see. Let me just change the color of the working area. Okay, so it's easier to see. This is the menu right here. So in this section, this is where you can take objects out of the many objects that the software offers you. You can just take them and drag them over here so that they appear onto the website. Let's do just a quick test right here to see what happens. I took a text object and I placed it onto here. So if I go and click on preview, you can see that the text that I selected is now appearing onto the website as well. This is part of the header. So every page I go, that element is going to be there. So if you want some kind of object to appear at all times in either the header of the website or the footer, which works in the exact same way, just click on footer here. This one is the section we are going to be doing this. You can move menus around, you can place them, you can resize them, you can change text of a pre-existing template such as this one. See, I just changed the name a bit here. I click on OK and I launch the preview. You can see that it changes everywhere for the entire website as far as the header is concerned. Just like the template structure, you also have, again, let me just change this back to the original one. You also have the possibility of changing the responsive views, because when you're building your website, there may be situations where, let's say I go from here to here, where maybe an object might start to overlap a little bit. This is not something, compared to the part before, this is not something that the software can handle on its own. The software needs you to tell it where the objects need to be placed in the header and in the footer as the size of the screen shrinks. Let's go to the homepage, for example. If I go here and then here, you can see that this element is now right here very close. But if I go back here, then I move to the second responsive view and I drag the object down here, and then I launch the preview again and move here to this viewport, you can see that the object now appears down here, just as I placed it down here now. If I move it back up here and launch the preview again, then I move to the same viewport as before, which is this one, you can see that the object is back up where it was before. You can also customize the sidebar if you want, which is you can have some content on the side of your website, like right here, but you have to enable this. I'm sorry, not here. You go to structure type and you select that you want a website structure with a header, a footer, and a sidebar too. And this new section appears here. This is where you can place objects if you want them to appear on every page of the website. If you don't want that to appear, and by default it usually is disabled, you can just go to structure type and select header and footer only so that you do not have the sidebar. Then, now that we got template content out of the way too, we can move on to text, field, and button style. So what is this section used for? So this section is used to customize a few aspects of the website, such as the font that are going to be used, the size of the text, the color. You can customize the look of some buttons that appear on the website, of some links, and all changes that you apply here are going to be changed everywhere in your website. So in this section of the software, this is where you can start giving a specific identity to your website through fonts and texts. If you click on these elements, you see that they are also automatically selected. So it's easy for you to understand. For example, let's say page text, I click on this, and I get a few options like text color, font type, size. If you change elements here, they are going to be changed everywhere in the website. So it's very easy if you plan on using more or less the same fonts and the same colors for your whole website, much like it happened here. You customize it here, and you don't have to go over every page and update each page to look exactly the way you want it to. You can do it all from this part right here. You can customize links. Again, you can customize buttons. Any change that I make here, let's give a fast example. Let's see. I want to try and change all of these to a red color. I'm seeing right now some messages in the chat asking, I can't hear you. Can somebody confirm if you can still hear the audio or if the audio went away? Let me just check. Oh, I see that you also asked a few questions about product catalog. We're going to be answering all questions about any doubts at the end of the video, assuming, of course, this is something I can reply to right now. So if you have any questions regarding anything I am saying at this time, I would like to ask, if possible, to keep the question till the end so we can go over anything that I've explained and perhaps wasn't as clear as I tried to make it. If there's any question that unfortunately is not maybe specifically related to the webinar, I advise using our main channels such as the help center or our phone number or our email, where me and my colleagues will be more than happy to try and help you sort out any doubt that you might have left outstanding. So going back to what I was talking about before, I'm trying to change the color of a few texts here and then opening up the preview again. But I have to, okay, like this one right here. You can see that it changed right here. I'm gonna check if, yeah, for example, that kind of font size is used on this page as well. And you can see that it changed on this page too. I can go on and change a few more colors like this one for the page text as well. And you can see that it changes everywhere where this specific font and option for the text is used. You change it once and you will find it changed everywhere in just one quick option change. This is very, very useful if you have a big website where you don't plan to have many different fonts used, but you have this one like very specific identity that you wanted to give to all of the content that you're presenting your users with. So let's move back and check out the last section I wanted to talk about in step number 2, which is the sticky bar. Keep the menu on top when scrolling. And I think this is a pretty good definition of the sticky bar, which might not always be enabled on all templates, but you can enable at any time. And this bar does exactly what it's advertised to do. So as I mentioned before, the main purpose of the header is usually to give your users an easy access, um, uh, most often to the different pages of the website, so you can find them up here. And if you want to navigate to a different section of the website, you can just click on them, and there you go. And you immediately find the page you were looking for. But in many situations, there's usually a lot of content on a single page, so you might be forced to scroll the page down. And in some situations, this is going to bring the main header out of the view of the user. So what if they want to change page? They might have to scroll all the way back up to find the header again. So the sticky bar aims to solve this issue specifically. By using the sticky bar, you have kind of a second header that you can customize under content once you enabled it here with display and upper bar. You go to the content section, and just like the header section before, you can essentially put any object you want in here. Since the sticky bar is a section of the website which follows you as you scroll through the rest of the content, it's usually, again, a best practice. Try not to overload the sticky bar with too much content, which might not make sense as the user is scrolling down the website. It's usually much better to only put right there only maybe the most useful functionalities that you think your users are going to be finding useful as they scroll through the website. And it's very likely that the main feature that all users are going to be wanting to have is the menu. So you can see right here we have the menu, and then we also have just it's a little hard to see because it's in white. We have the main logo of the website. So when I go into preview and I scroll down, I don't really care about the social icons anymore, but I care about having the menu items right there for me to click and change page at any time. Let's say you don't even want the website logo right there. You can just go here and delete it. And if I go back to the preview and I scroll down, it's no longer there. One more thing, just like for the template content, again, you have to handle the responsive view as well. So you can go to this bar on the left, click on the different sizes, and make the changes you want. Let's say I do want to have my logo at like a smaller size, or I just want to have like a generic text. I can use let's say the title option right here. I put a title object and I write smooth right here. I can also select like a different font, a different color. Let's say maybe bold. Okay. I get it right here. I can resize it. And then launch the preview. Go back down. I go through my different viewports, and there it is. Only on this specific viewport, because that's where I've put it. If you put an object right here, it's going to show on the lower resolutions, but it's not going to be showing on the higher ones. Let's say you only want this to show here. You can also go back to the smaller ones, click on the object, and then you can say through the show hide option, hide for this viewport if you don't want this object to only show on this viewport. Or you can click on hide for this and subsequent viewports. If, for example, I want this object to only appear here, or maybe I only want it to appear here and not on the lower resolutions, you just click on them. You say hide for this and subsequent viewports, and this object is only going to appear for the bigger sizes of screens. Okay, so once that part is done too, I think we can skip over number 3 for the moment. This, I'm just gonna go over it real quick to explain to you why we're skipping this part right here. This is the map section of the website, which is where you decide how many pages your website is going to have. You can rename them. You can put them inside like sub levels, like in this case right here. You see that you have a sub level and a few pages under it. So that when you go under preview, you can see that if I hover on the pages option, I get this sub menu, which can be particularly helpful to better structure your website into different pages. But again, I think we have a couple previous webinars on the menu part specifically that I strongly advise checking out once this webinar is over. If you need a refresher, or if you maybe never work with the software and it's the first time that you're approaching it, so you can get a better idea of what this section has to offer. There's a lot to go over when we're talking about the map for the website. So yeah, I strongly advise checking the specific video out so you can get a better idea of all things you can do in step number 3 with Website X5. For the last part of the webinar, we're going to be moving to step number 4 though, which is pages. So once in step number 3, you choose the page you want to be working on, you just select it, and then you can either double click on it, or you can just select it and then click on pages. And you are going to be presented with what I think can safely be described as the main core of the software as you are building your website, which is the grid of the software. So the grid is this structure right here. It's called grid because you can add columns and rows to it, which helps you organize the content of your website and build the final look of all of your web pages. This is where you decide for every page what kind of content is going to be shown on each page. You can see right now, since we're looking at a pre-built template, you can see that we already have a number of content inside. But if you pay close attention to it, you can see that what we built inside this grid perfectly matches what you see in the preview. Like for example, you have these 3 images. Now you have 3 text under the images, then a couple bigger text, then 3 images. And look and behold, you have 3 images, the 3 texts right under the images, then the bigger text, then you have 3 images, and so on. So all that you build inside this grid is going to be translated by the software from this look right here to the final website look. And placing objects inside your website is as easy as taking an element and dragging it over to the grid and just releasing it in any slot that you want to fill. Again, keep in mind that you do not have to keep this structure that you found the template in, like 3 columns. But as I shown before with the buttons up here, you can add any columns you want. You can change the size of object. You can make them bigger, smaller. You can add objects. You are free to customize all of the template at your leisure, so that you're sure that your website looks exactly the way you want it to. Also, once let's say you are dragging an image object and placing it here, or the text object right here, editing any of this, again, it's as easy as double clicking on it. I double click on an image object and I'm presented with this interface, which has a few options, but the main ones I want to be looking right now is just how this works. Which let's take this for example. So in this case, how was this built? This was built by placing an image into it, which was selected from the online Pixabay option, which is this one right here. You have this photo gallery that retrieves images from online, and you can use them inside your project. And then we used another functionality of the software, which is achieved by clicking on edit, which allows you to only select a certain portion of the image. And then you also have masks such as this one to kind of cut only the part of the image you're interested in for the final effect that you're getting here. This is not something that every project is going to be needing, but I just wanted to show to you, because if you go here, for example, and I decided to remove the mask, what I get is just the generic image. But again, since these templates are made by our internal design team, you can see that they went the extra mile, and they also made use of features like the masks to give your project that extra oomph, so that when you want to start and want to go over designing the whole thing, it was partially already designed for you. This is just one example. Same goes for text object, but any object really. If I want to change, for example, the text that I can find right here, we just find the object related to it, which is this one. You can see you get a small preview down here. You just double click on it and you can find the text. I can also write the text down here, or you can see, just like we saw at the beginning of the webinar, you still have, of course, if you have an active license at the moment, you also have the MagicText option, just like before, which again asks for a few inputs for you, like what you want to talk about in this part, particularly what you want to talk about in this page. And it doesn't just do that. It also gathers some information from like the main description of your website, the name of your website. It retrieves a number of information which it then uses to generate the best possible text that you can just apply here instead of this one. So you don't even have to write the text that you want to place onto your website. Let's say you're mainly focused on imagery, for example. You don't want to spend a lot of time on texts. MagicText does just that. It generates all the text for you and places it right here, so you don't have to think too much about what to write. This is especially useful if you, just for a moment, you stop and think about how much, I'm sorry, how many people and how much time and usually how many resources are put inside professionals by companies who are doing exclusively this for the company. So writing texts, writing catchy phrases, stuff like that to place onto the website. Of course, if you are any big company, you are probably relying on professionals to do this. But if you're just starting out with your new first websites, it's very likely that you do not have access to that kind of budget or time or resources. So you can leverage the power of AI to help you in this sense. It really just takes out a lot of the stress of having to write proper text, then maybe also getting a little more knowledgeable about SEO, like we mentioned before. It does this for you. So you can focus on building the website the way you want it, while the software takes care of the rest of the of maybe the more boring, or if not boring, not necessarily boring, but maybe more specialized tasks which you might not be as used to making, like the text, for example. Okay, so we took a quick look at how to place objects. So images, text, you just drag them right onto the grid system. But that is actually not the end of this, because if we go to the preview one more time, there's one more thing that might not be immediately clear here. But let's say, for example, let's take this part right here. Okay, so you have 3 images and 3 texts. So we have 3 images and 3 texts. But as you can see, we also have this yellow background. So I cannot emphasize enough how many times we have users ask us, maybe they start off with a new template and they come and ask exactly this. So I just started with a new template and I'm getting this orangey color or sometimes it's an image if it's not a color, sometimes it's a video, and I want to change that. But when I go to step number 4 and I look through the different objects, I just find no way of doing that. Why is that? Because this grid you see right here doesn't tell the entire story. So this part is only dedicated to the content. So text, images, videos, functionalities, stuff the user can interact with. But there's a whole another world right behind this this part right here. So one of my colleagues actually made a very helpful image to help explain this concept. I'm going to show it to you right here. You can think of the grid like this. So you have a series of elements which go from the smallest to the biggest one. So the smallest is the object. So the ones we just saw together, like a single text, maybe an image, these objects that you take and drag onto the page to customize the website. Then you have rows. So like, for example, what we just saw, you have a number of images, but all of them are currently on the same row and they all share the same background color. Then you have the grid, which is the entirety of it. And all of these elements go and form the final page. So going back to the software, let's say we want to see, okay, where is that orangey background coming from? You go and move to the row format section right here. So what this section does is present you with a screen which is, let's say, kind of similar to the one before, but you can see that there's no objects to drag in here. Right here, the entire grid is only divided into rows. You can see that some of them are connected and some of them cannot be split due to the kind of objects you put inside. Some of them are on their own, but can be linked to another if you want to by clicking on the lock here. And some of them are just on their own. So if I click on these 3 elements right here, normally they would have their own row. So that would mean that I can change the color, the background color of the row right here, then a different color right here, a different one right here. But what you can do is you can also link all of the rows together if I want the same color for all of them, like right here. Let's say I wanted to remove the link from here. So now only these 2 are linked. You see they no longer have a background color assigned to them. But this row right here, it has one, and it's only that one row. If I go back to the preview, you can see that background only covers this one row right now. As soon as I link it back together with the rest of the objects, the color changes. What if I wanted to link more rows? I can just do it like this, go to preview, and you can see that all of the rows that I linked now share the same background color. As I mentioned, now we have a color here, but it doesn't have to be a color. It can be a gradient. It can be an image. It can be a series of image. It can be a video. Let's say if I were to pick an image, let's say I can go and then we go online to the image selection here. I select any random one right now will do. And then I go on preview. You can see that I now have the image as a background. So if you start from a new template and you find yourself lost because you're like, okay, but where is this color coming from? Where is this image coming from? Why can't I change it? It's very, very likely that the row format section is the section you're looking for. You also have a number of other helpful tools here, like the parallax effect. If you want to place an image on the background and then get a parallax effect for it. You can enable full height. If you want your page, I'm going to give you a quick example of how this looks. With full height enabled, you get this like big effect where each section of the site only, like it covers the entire screen. So when the user scrolls down, each section is made as big as the entire screen. You can also enable auto scrolling, which gives you an effect like this one. You see, I scroll down and the website is brought down automatically, just enough to divide the website into sections. There's a lot you can do with raw formats. I advise playing with it a little bit so you can get a good grasp of all things you can customize here. The last thing I want to go over with you is the responsive section, because yes, we have responsive on the content as well, not just the template structure, sticky bar, the template content, but on pages too. Although responsive here works a little bit different. So when we were talking about header and footer, you have to think it like this. For the header and the footer, since there's no real grid there, but the elements are placed by hand wherever you want them to appear, you actually have to manage each different viewport, each different resolution, so that you are sure that your content always looks the best way possible. But for content, this is actually something that the software can take care of automatically. So I don't have to tell the software how I want my content to be displayed as the screen gets smaller. It can actually do this. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn that option off. Okay, there we go. Let's go back to the project. Okay. You don't actually have to tell the software where to put the content on the different resolutions. You can see now they go vertical. Now they go back to horizontal. This is something that the software can take care of completely on its own. But if you want, let's say, I like in the viewport right here, I don't want these three texts, which just for reference are the ones right here, to appear on certain resolutions. As you can see right here, I can just go and click on show hide and then select the elements like here that I do not want them to appear on lower resolutions. I can also tell the software with line breaks if I want my elements to go on a new line before the software does it itself. So for example, now that we don't have these three texts selected, you will see that when I'm in the biggest viewport, I have these texts. If I go one lower, I still have them. But if I go back one further viewport down, you can see that the text just disappear. Same goes for the text right here. So you have full control over what elements appear on every different viewport. Again, this is something that you can make use of, but compared to what I've shown before, you might not always have to, because this is done automatically and you can only fine tune it here. While for the template, for the header and footer, it is highly recommended that you check each resolution, because you're going to have to fix the position of the objects to make sure that they look good on every different resolution. So last but not least, the one thing I want to show you, which I think is pretty cool, but I think it's often overlooked. If you go to the preview, you have a very special button right here, which says Object Edit Mode. If you click on it and then you go over elements on the page, it actually tells you exactly what you're looking at. It tells you that this is an image object on its own. This is a text object on its own. This is a great tool that allows you, without having to go back to the software interface, it allows you to know exactly how many elements are here, what elements those are, and also grants you quick access to them. Let's say I want to change this image quickly. I just click on here, then I click on here, and now I have this. Sorry, I have this right under the screen. It takes me here, and I can just go and modify this very, very quickly compared to having to go through the interface to get to the same place. Okay, so I think we've discussed basically all that I really wanted to talk to you about today, which is how to customize a template for Website X5. Of course, there would be a ton more to talk about here. This is why we're usually dividing our webinars into specific topics, so that once this is over, you can go to our Instagram. I'm sorry, to our YouTube profile and check the other videos we made, which are specific for each section, so that it's much easier to fully understand um, what each section does and how to leverage their functionality at their fullest. So since we've reached the end of today's webinar, as I mentioned before, I would like to ask you if you have any kind of questions at all about any topic which I've talked about today, which you think maybe wasn't very clear. I could have explained myself better. I am more than welcome to try and go over it again to make sure that all that I explained was as clear as possible. If you have, of course, any question which unfortunately might not be related to today's webinar, but of course it's still important to answer. Again, I kindly advise you to go over our different channels for communicating with me and our colleagues through our help center, email, phone, so we can get in touch with you and help you sort out any kind of doubt you might have. So I can see, well, this is not really a question, but I've seen somebody, okay, asking, I like the AI announcement in creating a website from scratch. I'm glad you like them. We really think that as people, especially people which are new to building websites, they like to focus on certain aspects, but they don't want to have to go over all of them every time. Having a tool such as AI, which can help you manage some aspects of it, while still you can still retain your creativity, the creative part of the website building. This is an exceptional tool because it really takes away some of the longest, most boring part of building the website, and you can just focus on being as creative as possible and getting your website exactly where you want it to be. So will this be available on YouTube? Yes, it will. As soon as it is over, you maybe it takes a couple hours. I'm not sure, but you will find this on YouTube later. Okay, here we go. Row format: how to link rows together or delink. I'm gonna show this to you again. So on step number 4 under pages, you go under row formats right here, and you have all your different rows. If you see right here, you have these kind of blue dots which connect the different rows, but you can see that some of them, like these ones right here, are currently delinked. You just get your mouse in the middle of the 2 dots, and this little lock icon appears. If I click on this, the lock will stay there, and this represents that the 2 rows are now linked and they will share the same configuration. If I want to delink them at any time, just click on the lock again, and the lock will disappear. Okay, basically, this was very careful. Basically, need one for Magic site. Okay, I will put this request for. We can maybe think about doing a webinar completely focused on Magic site, since AI is inevitably taking over more and more of our everyday work. I understand that it might be a good webinar, a good functionality for the software to look further into. Can you do this more and more regularly? But we try to make as many as we can, trying to focus on different aspects of the software, because again, the software has a lot going on. There's really just so much stuff we could be talking about. That is why we try and separate webinars in different parts, so that it's easier for you to follow, it's easier for us to explain, and whenever you need a specific piece of information, you just straight up know where to go look for it. Okay, yeah, the magic mouse, the magic mouse between rows. Yeah, it's all of this always looks like magic in the end. Okay, so I'm not seeing any further questions, so I guess we could call this a day. Well, I would like to, okay, let me just get back on the scene for a moment. There we go. Okay, well, I greatly thank you for joining me today. Again, I hope, as always, the webinar was at least a very bit useful for you. If it was then I guess it was worth it. And well, I guess I'll see you at the next webinar. It's usually me if you're watching more of our English webinars. Yeah, I thank you again for joining me today. It was fun as always, and I guess I'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you again, and have a good day.